Hey, good evening, everyone. It's late, and I'm upset because I just spent a bunch of time on the phone with my bank. They didn't have the routing number on the website, so I was quite frustrated. But here we are. We're answering questions. We're going to do 4 questions tonight. Hold up 4 fingers for 4 questions. And let's jump right in. So the first one is Wes. Wes asks, I am in rural PA. What would be an acceptable amount per acre to rent off a neighbor for greenhouse and high tunnel space? In past, at a different locale, I've rented land for $75 an acre with no structures. What if I want market garden space? He currently gets estimated $85 an acre for corn and soybean land. What do you think is a fair offer at a minimum time period as well? I'm thinking 5 years for starters. Opinions. Great question, Wes. We've actually rented a lot of land over the years, and been in a fair number of negotiations on that. Actually, I'm working with a couple out in Colorado now, where we're kind of working actually with 2 different situations, one with a private landowner and one with actually a state and county. So it's really interesting, the negotiations we're doing there. But a couple of things I would put out there. So first, obviously, it sounds like it's corn and soybean now, that it may be conventional. So I'm not sure if you want to wait for the 36 months before it's certified to actually plant stuff and harvest stuff. If not, then obviously you can go in and offer the same amount every single year. What we did with ours, because we're waiting that 36 months, is we were offering a tiered. So the first couple of years the rent was lower, and as we got in and started to produce and able to put our infrastructure on and get our soil in right, then we started doing more. But here's the thing I would say about that is $85 an acre sounds to me cheap. What I would do is I would say a minimum of 5 years, and it's a 5-year rolling lease. So at every single year you sign a new lease for 5 years rolling, okay? I would pay $150 an acre, because really when you think about it, the amount of money you're paying per acre here, especially if it's good land, is peanuts. I mean, you can make $50,000 to $100,000 an acre off this land. So, especially if you put up high tunnels. If you are putting high tunnels on, you may want to pay $200 and just say, to solidify it more. I would have a buyout too. So let's say he were to kick you off. There needs to be a buyout clause that he pays you, X percentage of the stuff you put in, and I'd put that really high. So it's kind of like more of a lease, not a rent. Just really solidify that better, I think. Right in there that you get able to take care of predators. You get to post the land. You get to say who comes on and off that land. Doesn't get sprayed, that kind of stuff. So think about all the different scenarios that you could be going through on this and write it out. We even had in there that we could trim the trees on the land and clean back the brush and that sort of thing as well. So 5 years is good. If you could get them to do 8 or 10, I'd go for it. Why not? Again, it's one of those negotiating things that you said, oh, I want, $100 an acre, while you say, okay, fine, if you give me 7 years lease instead of 5. So to me, the really trying to get that solidity into that agreement is key. All right, let's jump on to this next one. Where did my mouse go? Next one is from Matthew, and Matthew asks, this is my first time using plastic mulch. Yep, I see a picture there using pieces of wood to hold it down. I am doing everything by hand, so I came up with this idea. We have 40-mile-an-hour wind here today, and this is holding up good. Watermelon will be transplanted here in a few days. Should I try to haul dirt to hold down the plastic mulch, or do you think the wood alone will work? I think it's a tough situation you're looking at right there. I would really, if you're doing trying to do plastic mulch wide like that in that picture, and I'll actually show you guys this picture here because I can. There you go. I would actually use ground cloth and then ground cloth staples. I don't see why you wouldn't, because ground cloth will last for 5-6 years. If you're going to plastic mulch, usually plastic mulch is laid with space in between it, and in that space in between it, you dig a trench, bury the plastic in that trench. And I've laid a lot of plastic by hand. It's no fun. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend plastic until you have either a mulch layer, a manual mulch layer. TerraTech makes one, Johnny sells it, or a tractor mulch layer. And even if you have to pay someone in your community to come over and do it, to me it's money well spent, even if they charge you $150 a tractor hour, because that can lay so quick. Usually in a couple hours you can lay almost a couple acres. But yeah, for this situation, I would definitely try to get some dirt on there, and definitely try to get that held down better, weighed down better, or use some ground cloth. So yeah. All right, let's go again to the next question here. So Jeff is asking, I'm in Zone 9B, so it sounds like you're probably in Florida or Texas, or maybe somewhere in Arizona. Or maybe the West Coast. I'm looking at a high tunnel with shade cloth. Should I cover the whole thing or just the sides? So Jeff, the goal with shade cloth is to cover, the top part actually, where the sun's beating on it. So even the roll-up sides, you might not have any worry about it, but you would definitely want to do the top. And for Zone 9B, I'd actually recommend Luminet, which is like a got aluminum strands in it, which actually reflect it better than the black. The black actually, while it cuts the light, that black absorbs that heat and makes your plastic hot and makes your plastic last less. So Luminet would be the way I'd go with this. I wouldn't really worry about your sides. I just worry about the top of your greenhouse. And Zone 9B, you could also do some just shade structures too, because you're really not getting that cold. Yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on that. I mean, obviously there's a heck of a lot more you can go into with the whole high tunnel and shade cloth, but we'll just leave it at that. And last one is from Jordan, and Jordan's asking, wondering who all of you uses hay as mulch, and or if you are composting it prior to field application. I've got 6 to 7 acres of alfalfa, timothy, red clover, hay surrounding my 2-acre market garden. It was originally a larger area. My landlord put in a buffer. Hay has weed seeds, but since it is my hay, I know exactly what I'm dealing with as far as weeds. Pennycress, wild mustard, dandelion in the spring. Not super bad, but not fun either. And this year I float mowed the worst sections of pennycress and wild mustard to keep it from going to seed, and then we hayed it a few weeks earlier than normal to get ahead of the weeds. Good. And I've never found straw, oat, or rye that doesn't carry a bunch of grain seed in it. This is abundant on-farm resource for me. I think I could better utilize it in my operation. But the question for me is how and what risk opportunities should be considering. Wow, big question. Great question. Because again, we love to see lots of carbon. So one of the big tenets of our consulting is really how do you get the maximum amount of carbon in your soil, because that's what really gets great crops growing. So one of our fields right now we're struggling with our organic matter, and our crops in there are struggling. And we just know we need to go out there and either get some compost in there, some straw, hay in there, or some peat moss in there to push those organic matters up and get the field going again. So here's what I would say, Jordan, is I've used hay a lot on our farm. We would actually go out and buy a junk 4x4 round bales and then go ahead and use that for our farm. And we just actually roll those out. But with the smaller bales, you can just flake it out, lay it down between. That works good. One thing with hay, as long as you don't have a lot of annual weeds in there, so if you don't have really weedy like pigweed and lamb's quarters and stuff and some of those other ones, most of those weeds like dandelions are super easy to get rid of. I mean, those are very easy weeds to kill. So I'm not so worried about that. The one thing about hay is it rots down a lot faster than straw, so you want to put about a foot or 18 inches on, and that's going to really just decrease through the year, especially if it's got alfalfa and red clover, because those are high nitrogen hay things, and those are going to really decrease. I wanted to talk about the straw, because you mentioned in here you've never seen oat or rye straw that doesn't carry a bunch of grain seed in it, because it wasn't cut for straw. It was grown for the grain, and then the straw was sold. So when we produce straw, and we contract that out, or actually go ahead and grow on our own property, we would actually cut it in pollen stage so that it was only for the straw. It was the best quality. There wasn't any weed seeds in it. And in that situation, you want to actually have a low rate of vetch in it. So you don't want to have a super high rate of vetch, or it gets too big and then it basically pulls down the rye and doesn't do a good quality straw. Or the other thing to do would be do red clover. And if you see the good red clover, you mow the rye off, and the red clover just comes right up through the stubble and actually does a great summer cover crop. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. You definitely can use that. A couple things to be careful of. Again, mow it early is good. But yeah, as long as you got good cultivation equipment, I don't think you'll have a problem with that. And there was another question which I don't think I grabbed for some reason. I lost it, but I remember it. So what I wanted to show you was, let's see right here. Oh gosh, See if you can move me over here. So you can see the question was about packaging greens and packaging crops in the wash and shed much quicker. And so this is the commercial way it's done. Now this thing you're looking at right here, it's very, very expensive. I think that runs like probably like $2,000 or something because it's stainless steel, has integrated scales and stuff. But I can see someone creating something a lot easier, a lot easier to use for packaging, roots, carrots, beets, potatoes, greens even. And so if you notice what this got is a big area that the product pours into, and then you have these little chutes that you stick your bag underneath and fill very quickly through that. So, and this is CharlieMachineandSupply.com. They do an awful lot of, food grade packing and stuff for all different types of products there, food products. So, all right, that was the 5 questions tonight. I said 4, but I got in one more at the end there. I hope you guys have a great night. Go ahead, like, share, comment below if you have any more questions. If you thought I was wrong, definitely comment below because I love to have a good discussion. I love to hear other people's point of view, see what they're feeling, they're thinking. Because that's the cool thing about this farming is there's so many different ways it can be done, and that's what keeps us in business.